Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back. So this morning I spent quite a lot of time crafting a blog post. It's been quite a while since I wrote a very long blog. But I thought it's an important topic, and I think the time's well spent. So what's the topic? Well, like what you see on screen, how much cash am I holding? Yes, how much cash is AK holding now? And this is a question that I've been asked in various forms by various people over the years, right? How much cash are you holding now? However, I've always sidestepped the question. It's like people asking me questions about my net worth, what's the size of my investment portfolio. I habitually sidestep questions like this, right? And I've explained why in a blog post before, and are you interested? You should be, and people should be more interested in my investment philosophy than my investment portfolio or my net worth or how much money I have. Okay. So the blog post I published this morning was the first time since I started blogging in 2009 where I shared some specific numbers. And of course, some people will wonder why the change of heart. This is because of what someone told me not too long ago, and it has been at the back of my mind. And that is, if I share something like this, it would help readers to have some kind of a yardstick which they can use in their own decision-making process, right? So, with that in mind, remember that this is just my number, right? We have to be mindful of the fact that all of our circumstances are different, so there's nothing sacrosanct about what I reviewed this morning, right? We do what our circumstances allow, right? And of course, we could push ourselves, and some people would say we should push ourselves to do more. But how much do we push? Well, that depends on our own threshold for pain, right? How hungry we are for results, that kind of thing. So it's very individual. Don't compare with other people if you know what I mean. As long as you are doing better day by day, that's good enough, right? So how much money am I holding now? Number one, my war chest. I have said again and again that it is important to have a war chest. So when opportunity knocks on our door, we have the resources to take advantage of that opportunity, right? So for me, such an opportunity usually takes the form of market pessimism, right? When Mr. Market goes into a depression, right? So like what Warren Buffett has said before, be greedy when others are fearful, right? And that it is harder to do well when everyone is feeling optimistic and there's market euphoria and everyone is chasing prices higher, right? Then how much should we have in our war chest? That is a question that I get asked so often, right? Now, there really is no magic number or percentage, right? It changes all the time. It depends on Mr. Market. So when Mr. Market is feeling optimistic, my war chest continues to grow in size. When Mr. Market feels pessimistic, my war chest could be totally empty. I could be scraping the bottom of my war chest trying to get some more money, find some more money to buy more stocks. Right? So during the global financial crisis, for example, I emptied my war chest. And this is something I blog about often. I blog about this before. I was looking for more money to invest because everything was dirt cheap, right? That was when I got into REITs in a big way, right? But what about now? Right? At the moment, I have about $200,000 in my war chest, which is less than what I had before the financial crisis. Before the financial crisis hit, I think I had a bit more than $300,000 in my war chest. So I actually have less money in my war chest now compared to back then, right? But this amount of money in my war chest, $200,000, is still growing, right? Because Mr. Market is still feeling very optimistic, and because I do not have a lavish lifestyle, and because my passive income exceeds my expenses by quite a bit, this sum of money in my war chest is likely to grow, right? And where do I keep the money? The money is stored in my T-bill ladder, right? And I blog about this. I made videos about this. It's in the T-bill ladder. I'll leave link in the description box below in case you're wondering why. So how to grow our war chest? Basically, just spend less money than we make, either actively or passively, right? And if you want it to grow faster, well, just become a better saver. It's simple. It just takes time, right? Number two, emergency fund, right? We have to talk about cash in my emergency fund, since I'm talking about, how much cash am I holding. And I have about $250,000 in my emergency fund. It's the first time I've ever reviewed this, right? Exactly how much I have in my emergency fund. I usually just tell people I have emergency fund enough to cover 24 months of expenses for myself and my parents, right? So now this is a specific number, $250,000. This amount has stayed the same for a while now. I mean, it gets adjusted upwards from time to time to account for inflation and other changes in life, right? And I say an emergency fund is important because if all else fails, we have near money we can rely on. And the last time I made an adjustment to my emergency fund was when I decided that I needed $48,000 a year myself, and that I should give my parents $48,000 a year too, $24,000 each, directly or indirectly, right? And that makes a total about $100,000 in expenses per year. And like I said, I like to keep emergency fund that will cover at least 24 months of expenses, so I at least should be about $200,000. So at $250,000, I have overcompensated. Well, the good thing is that I have a good size safety net, and I wouldn't have to tinker with my emergency fund for many years to come, right? And at this point, I must say that it is important to build a meaningful emergency fund first before ever investing any money in risk assets, which includes stocks and properties, right? And this, of course, if you have watched my video last night, you know what I'm talking about. And while we are building an emergency fund, I understand, our war chest would go hungry. For sure, we have only so much money, but it's only for a while, right? Once we have built enough emergency fund, we can start filling our war chest, we can start investing, right? With peace of mind, right? So if you are wondering how large your emergency fund should be, I blogged about this before, and I'll leave a link in the description box below to that blog post, right? How large should an emergency fund be? Now, where do I store my emergency fund? Well, in fixed deposits. Very simple, fixed deposits. This is because fixed deposits pay higher interest and they are easier to break than T-bills. Right? I basically just forgo the interest and I get back my principal, right? But at the moment, about $100,000 of my emergency fund is in the UOB1 account. Because that is really near money. That's a savings account. It's a high yield savings account that makes 5% per annum. But of course, comes 1st of May, I would have to bump this number up to $150,000 because UOB1 would be cutting the maximum interest rate to 4% on the first $150,000 of savings. And I made a video on this about 4 reasons to invest in UOB quite recently, and I say one of the reasons because UOB is very giam siap. Okay, let's jokes aside. Let's move on to number 3. Yes, there's still more. Number 3 is float. So what is a float? Well, it is just money floating in my savings account. which I can use on a daily basis. So of course, you're talking about how much cash am I holding. It has to include this, right? So I try to have about $20,000 floating at any time, right? This is not because I need all the money on the daily basis, but really because I'm just mental, right? I've said this a few times before. AK is mental. There's no rational reason for this apart from the fact that I feel safe having at least this much money, which I can use to pay anyone or for anything while leaving my emergency fund intact, right? So any excess money I really should be using to strengthen my T-bill ladder, right? But however, regular readers know, and in fact, if you're new to my blog or video channel, you also know that, obvious that AK cares more about having peace of mind and feeling comfortable than maximizing returns, right? Like I always say, I'm fine being only approximately right. What I want to avoid is being absolutely wrong. I want to avoid being absolutely wrong, right? So my float is currently closer to $50,000 than $20,000. But well, who's counting? Yeah. So now let's move on to number 4. Yes, this is the final point. Number 4 is CPF. Surprise, CPF. Yeah, I know someone will remind me about my CPF savings, which is of course pretty substantial, right? And I'll leave a link in the description box below as well to a blog post on this. Most of the money in my CPF account will become cash when I turn 55 in another couple of years, which is just around the corner, right? Because that's when my CPF account becomes a savings account. I would be able to withdraw the money whenever I want, right? So it becomes near money, right? My CPF account money becomes near money 2 years from now. So how to account for that? It's not how much money I'm holding now, but it's how much money I'll be holding 2 years from now. And I can see a happy problem. I mean, my war chest will become much larger because of this, right? But of course, I could also continue to treat my CPF savings as a bond component of my portfolio, which can be used to invest in other risk-free and volatility-free assets like T-bills, right? And if I should do that, then the bond component of my investment portfolio would remain intact. But I'll cross the bridge when I come to it, okay? And like I say in my blog, I'm feeling pretty breathless by now and time to stop talking to myself. So how much cash is AK holding now? You do the math. If AK can do it, so can you. Bye-bye.